All right, welcome back. We are MDEV1004. That's Mobile APIs and Frameworks, and it's week 4 in the summer 2024 semester at Georgian, and it's part 1 of our broadcast and recording. And let's do a little bit of housekeeping here. So hopefully that this is going to be okay. Housekeeping. So we have assignment 1 that's due this weekend. That's this Sunday at midnight, right? So that's coming up. And I'm also going to release assignment 2. So let me just bring up assignment 1, just so that way we know we're kind of aligned with what is expected. I know that people probably haven't looked at it for a while. They're going to probably try and knock it off in one weekend. Some people have data from other classes. That's fine. But I wanted to kind of talk about this because people may be uncertain. I am going to use a rubric for this, so you're going to see that the marking is going to be a different way than how I mark the in-class exercises. I have to create the rubric, and when I do, it's going to be based on the marks that you see here. So here's assignment 1. This is the one we talked about, I guess, a couple weeks ago, and I just want to zoom in here to take a look at it. So again, worth 7.5%. So again, it's like almost 2 in-class exercises, almost 2. And you're making an API, right? Express API with Express and TypeScript. You need a cloud service, such as Render. Some people like to use other cloud services. We're going to be talking about how to do it with Render today to get you guys up and going with this. MongoDB has to be full of your 20 favorite movies. That should be unique. So make sure the people that are out there that are watching this video that are not here in class or not online know that that's what's required. It's a unique set of movies that you need to put together. It means it should not be the same as your friends and partners and brothers and sisters and uncles. It's going to be your own. So I will check that. Please make sure it's a unique list. I mean, I'm not even asking a lot here. It's just 20 movies, right? So that's 20 pieces of data. What you're going to be doing is you're going to make it an API with Express and TypeScript. So it's got to be well structured, like we talked about. For the most part, you have this already. I mean, I've kind of built this with you. So these are like, in many ways, this assignment is like free marks if you do it properly, right? The Express API will provide a single endpoint, right? That you're going to have just to read. I'm not asking you to do much of anything right now. And then you have to have a model, which you do. We built that together. So, I mean, again, I don't expect any of these things to go like a low amount of marks. If we did this together, you should be no problem getting this done. I almost see this as a gift, like for the most part, right? So, because we did most of it together. And then now this part you have to do on your own, and it's worth 25 marks. Like a quarter of your assignment is just making sure your collection is good up on MongoDB Atlas. So make sure this is unique, okay? So I will be looking at this, like I said, and I'm hoping that it's going to be a good set of movies. And then internal documentation, you should document your stuff, like in different places, especially in different files where you have your name, ID, date, all that stuff. That's worth 5 marks. And then 2 mandatory points that we've done in every single time you do your in-class exercise. Same here. Your GitHub repository has to be private and separate from your in-class exercises. So please do not add this to your in-class exercises. I want separate repositories for your assignments. So assignment 1, separate. Assignment 2, separate. Assignment 3, 4, midterm test, final exam, all separate. Okay, so please, I don't want anything that is the same, because the thing with this is I kind of look at it completely differently. It's not an in-class exercise, and so don't put it there with all the other ones. Make a brand new repository, please. Okay? And that's kind of the thing that I'm looking for. Then you're going to be deploying to some kind of cloud servers. I recommend Render, right? And Render is something we're going to be talking about today, so I can help you out with that. And then, again, not too difficult at all. And then finally, you make your short video on YouTube. And what I want you to discuss with your short video is, look, here's my API, here's my endpoint. Briefly show it. Don't talk about necessarily the code. I know the code, right? You know the code. So we don't have to like go into details about, hey, look, this is how you read. I know how to read. There's nothing going to help me. Show me demonstrate your code in Postman. Like it's the best thing. Bring up Postman, demonstrate it, show me that it's working, and show me that it's working online on render, not locally. If you show me localhost, and if you can't make it work on render, you'll lose marks. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. So, so it's got to be a live API that I can access from anywhere. Okay, that's how it's got to be. That's what I want to look at, and what you're going to submit is a link to your website's project files, zip archive, please. A link to your GitHub, right? And again, we say preferable because some people like to add really weird things. GitHub, it's got to be private. A link to your live portfolio site, to your live site that you're making. Actually, this is really an API site. That's what it is. Hosted with a cloud provider, right? And a link to your video presentation on YouTube, right? So I'll write these in here so that you can see them right here on the video. And it's for this one, obviously, to your private GitHub repository, right? With me as a collaborator, right? And we're not going to say preferable. We're going to say that's what I need. So as you modify these, just make sure you see these online here. And this is what you need to submit, right? Stuff that you should know, okay, in terms of mark breakdown. I will be looking at 75% of this is functionality. There's no user interface at this point, right? Some internal documentation is another 5%. 5% for version control, 5% for cloud deployment, 5% for video presentation. And the API functionality also has inbuilt into it 20 favorite movies. So that's your content. I could have made this a separate little category. Content, 25%, right? It's like I said, it's a gift. It's weighed at 7.5% of your final grade. The way this works is different than in-class exercises. It's due on Sunday. If you're late, I will accept late, but you will be deducted 20% for every day that you're late. And what this means is if you're late 12:01 a.m. on like Monday morning, let's say you just missed it by 1 minute, you're losing 20%, right? And I know some people are like, but professor, I'm only late, 1 minute. No, you're late 2 weeks. That's how I see it, right? It's been 2 weeks. Like you've had all this time to plan. You could have submitted this thing a week ago. It's not that difficult, right? So, but I understand everyone's busy and all that kind of stuff. So try and plan your weekend accordingly. Remember, you also have the in-class exercise 4, which I'm doing today too, which is basically, the rest of CRUD, which is going to help you with assignment 2. That's what it's supposed to do, right? Which is what we're going to be talking about in a second. So this is really your assignment 1. I don't think it's difficult. I think it's very straightforward. Just get her done. Submit it on Sunday with a nice video for me, and mostly I think I'll be giving out some great marks. I'm hoping that you guys will be happy with those. Like I do with the in-class exercises, I'll try and mark all the people that have submitted their assignments on Monday. That's when the marks are going to come across, right? So if you don't submit your assignment on Sunday, then you're going to get your marks when I have time. That's what's going to happen. So you'll be late and you won't get your marks because lots to mark, and I mark on Mondays, right? So, so that's what's going to happen. And then, please, for external code, yes, you can use ChatGPT and all those kind of things, but not more than 10%. And realistically, you don't need it. I've given you all the code. Really, at the end of the day, I don't see how you would use anything externally, right? Because really, we're sharing stuff together, and you have everything you need, right? So that's just me. That's what assignment 1 is. For the people online now, my 2 friends, are you guys okay with this? If you are, you can, do
yes.
that. Thanks, Yash Kumar. So that's good. So then that's assignment 1. So assignment 2, let's talk about that really briefly. Let's save that. Assignment 2 kind of builds on assignment 1. There's assignment 2. It's also worth 7.5%. It's due not this weekend, of course, but 2 weeks from now, 2 weekends from now. So that's week 6 on June 16, 2024. It is full CRUD with authentication. So this is where we build upon everything we've already done. So we take the assignment 1 work that you've done, and we build on it. We add more CRUD functionality, which we'll be actually doing mostly today. And we'll add authentication. We'll kind of secure your endpoints to make sure that they it's only accessible through, through proper authentication. So that's what we're going to be doing, and that's going to start. We're going to be talking about authentication starting next week, is when we're starting. So that's what's happening there. What it says is create a second version of your Express API. Again, it requires a second repo, not the same one, that enables the user to perform full CRUD operations using MongoDB Atlas and Realm, right? MongoDB Atlas. Realm is kind of weird. Your Express API should be hosted on a cloud service such as Render. You may also choose another one. So whatever you chose for the first assignment is okay with this one. Hopefully it's Render. I think it's easy. Your live MongoDB database should include a list of your top 20 movies because that's what you had, but you're not getting paid for it again. This is this is required. You need data, right? And you will create at least 5 endpoints. So these are the ones I mentioned. Some endpoint that allows you to list, find one, add a new movie, update, and delete. Those are all the different endpoints you have, all right? That you'll be required to kind of put together. And then your API will also include authentication capabilities, but will not require authentication to be functional for your endpoint. So even though I'm asking for it, it's there, it doesn't have to be functional. And the reason why I put that in there is because we're going to be working with authentication. I want you to implement it, but it's not necessarily turn it on. And there's a reason for it, because we don't really have a front end to consume it right now. We'll be testing it. I'll talk about how you can test it and show it in your video as we come closer to this. But one of the problems that we have is that you need to be able to consume it somehow. We don't have a consumer. We don't have a front end, right, at all. No user interface right now. We will have it. It's going to be built in the second half of semester. But for now, we don't have it, and that's why I'm not asking for it to be fully secured by the by week 6. So again, your Express API must be written in TypeScript and will be structured. MongoDB database will include a collection of your top 20 movies. You only get 5 marks for this. So if your MongoDB database somehow is empty, I can add stuff manually myself and check it, but it should include your 20 movies. If it doesn't include your 20 movies or they're deleted somehow, you're losing 5 marks, okay? So that's what's going to happen there. It should point to the same database, by the way. That's one thing we have to talk about. I don't want you to create a separate database for this. So same database, same data, okay? Your Express API will connect to Mongo and have all these different endpoints we talked about before. And it'll include authentication capabilities. However, you do not require authentication. You must include a user model. You must include a user controller. Like, it has to have that structure that we're going to build together in your in-class exercises. And then internal documentation for your site, you have to have that. GitHub, like we talked about before, deployed to cloud, and short video. So all that stuff is exactly the same. And I think what we're going to be talking about here is the exact same stuff that we really have done before. I don't know why I didn't put this in. Private GitHub repo. And I think when I did this last time, we had some discussion in the class. Some people like to use GitLab or Bitbucket. I don't know, but we talked about this. So this is assignment 2. I think, again, I don't think this is a hard one. And it really, all I'm doing is trying to build capability for you guys, for the people who've never done web at this level, who've never used TypeScript, and to get you guys ready for your midterm test, which is going to come out. It's coming soon, right? Like, it's around the corner. The midterm test, of course, will be available for the week. I'll make it available. Let me talk about this. If you guys were in person, an in-person group, I'm just going to kind of get rid of that for a second. And let me just talk about the midterm tests. So here's, it's coming up. So if I was to go here to look at it, here we go. So here's your midterm test. It's coming up in a couple short weeks, right? So maybe like 3 weeks is when it's going to come. I'll put that over there, that layer here. And what it's going to be based on is everything we've done today. So I may ask you to do something for your midterm test that you've kind of done before, but with a different data set. And you're going to have the probably some time to do it. I'll give you a window of time because, again, it'll be online. And now one thing that I will include is slightly different data for everyone. So depending on who you are, then you'll have some kind of data that's different. You might have some different endpoints. It will be different for everyone. So everyone will have a slightly different test. That's what's coming up. I'm letting you know. And notice that it's worth 15% of your final grade. So it's not like a small amount. It's pretty big, but again, if you think about it, I always think about this kind of stuff. And I mean, like, really, I've given you everything. It's an open book, open internet. You know, I'm going to get you to do something for the time frame that I'm opening the test for, and then you're going to be good to go, right? You shouldn't have a problem. The test, if you miss it, 0. There is no running it late, submitting late, none of that stuff. It's just, you know, you have your time. I open the test window, you do your test, and then I close the test window. And that'll be coming up again in a few short weeks. It's coming up, right? So there's no lecture that week, and there's no in-class exercise. And again, what I'm trying to do over the weeks is build up your capability so that by the time you get to the test, it should be straightforward. If you've never done any of this stuff, you've never done the in-class exercise, you didn't do your assignments, the test will be impossible. It will just be too hard for you to do. I will be looking for ChatGPT and those kind of things. On the test, it will not be allowed. So you're going to have to use your own code. You can look at my code, that kind of stuff. But ChatGPT and all those things would be no good. I've also noticed some of your code is very, very similar. I'm going to say this, you know, when I've done the marking, I haven't said anything so far, but I've seen some people's code, some people's structure, some people's comments are very, very similar to other people's. And my friends, this is unacceptable. So I'm going to warn you. Here's the thing that I'm going to put out there for those people that are watching this video, that you need to do your own work. Okay, I can see it. I mean, I'm an experienced programmer, and I've done this teaching job for a while, and it's not difficult for me. Okay, so I know the things that people do. This is not my first rodeo, as they say, right? So please do your own work. Please, I'm asking you. I don't want to have these problems at the end of the semester where you get 0, and you're like, why did I get 0? Because you and I'm gonna make a name up here. You and Tom, there we go. You and Tom have the exact same work. Exactly the same, everything, the code, the structure. In fact, it's like if I do a diff, if I compare my code, you know, or not my code, but your code with this other person, it's identical. Every line is identical, like they copy pasted, right? Actually, you probably copy pasted. Please don't do this, right? And don't change variable names and think that that's enough, or even move functions around and think that's enough. None of that is enough, right? It's the same. A code analyzer, any code analyzer can tell you with certainty, right, how close your code is to someone else's. So certainly there's going to be parts of the code that is like, I've written with you, and that'll be the same, okay, because we've written it together. But there's other parts, especially for your midterm test, that you're going to write on your own that we haven't written together. You know, so if that looks the same, you know, you know, it's not going to be happy things that happen, right? So please be careful. You know, just do your thing. I don't want to talk about this too much because it bothers me to talk about it, but we have to because I've been seeing this pattern, right, and with some people. Okay, so that's coming up. Any questions around assignment 1, assignment 2, anything like that? I mean, I've kind of talked for a bit, and I want to make sure I want to take it back to you guys because we have kind of some busy stuff to do now.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, actually, I did a mistake by submitting my video on this Google Drive,
Mm-hmm.
actually. So yeah, I got a 0 for ICS2.
Yep.
So sir, yeah, that was just a mistake from my side. Can you like mark me for that assignment?
No. The way it works is you have the best 10 out of 12. So even if you do the rest of them good, you're fine. Nothing to worry about. Remember,
Yes.
I don't mark all of them. Like I mark them all, but I don't count them all. I only count the best 10. So if
Alright,
you mess
sir.
up
Yeah.
2, you're fine, right? Don't worry about it. You know, and
And
the
this
same thing
assignment, yeah, yes, sir. And this assignment one, when is the due date for this assignment one?
this Sunday at midnight, along with
Alright.
in-class exercise 4. So that's what I was going to
Okay,
say.
sir.
So both in-class exercise 4 and your assignment are due this Sunday at midnight. And that means that's
Okay.
11.5% out of your final grade, right? So so try and time it, Bill. If I give you your in-class exercise today, finish it today, right? And-
Alright, sir, yes.
Yeah.
Correct, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
So moving on. So any other questions around assignment 1 or assignment 2, the things that we've talked about? Because they're assignment 1 is due this Sunday at midnight. Again, please try and get it in on time. You don't want to lose marks for getting it in 1 minute late. I will subtract 20% of your grade, all right? Because again, you've had 2 weeks, right? So make sure you don't submit 5 minutes before, okay? Or even 10 minutes before, or even an hour before. Because remember, Blackboard can go down, guys, right? You might have a power outage. There could be an internet outage. Something is going to happen. None of that is my fault. If you don't have that, then, I mean, you waited to the last minute to submit, right? So please don't do that. Plan differently. Try and get it done as soon as possible. Neither of the things that I'm asking you to do are hard. None of them, right? I've given you most of the code, right? I mean, so it's not like it's difficult. You have to do some minor changes. If you've never done TypeScript before, it might be new, as an example, but please don't wait till the last minute. Remember, if you take my advice, the two things I always say to people is, there is no on time. There's only early or late. Try and be on time for an appointment. You're going to be probably late. It's very hard to be exactly like your appointment's at 9 o'clock and you're going to be exactly there at 9. Imagine if your professor did that, right? I have a class with you at 11 and I wait until 11 to start everything. Exactly. I just come into the room at 11. I'm there, right? That's late, right? So you can't. So try and take that advice, especially for work. In Canada specifically and everywhere else in Ontario, if you want to get a job and you come in exactly on time, people will start looking at you because you have to take your jacket off. Maybe you have to take your backpack off. Whatever you're going to do, start setting up. People expect you to be there, ready to go at the time that you're there. So that means you have to be there early, right? And so take this mentality when you're doing these things. I know I feel like a dad when I'm talking to you guys. I feel like, no one wants to listen to me talk about these things. But please, I'm trying to help, right? I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that. Just, do your things. I know there's a lot going on. And I know that my class is not the only thing you got going, but, it's important you get things done on time. All right, so that is the schedule, a little bit of housekeeping. So what are we doing today? Today we're talking about API CRUD operations, create, update, and delete. There's also, I want to try and help you guys deploy live on render. I've added some slides here for you, right? I'm not going to go and read all of these slides. I'm not going to do that, okay? Some of them have the code in place here. So for example, completing API CRUD, which is what we're going to start talking about first. It has code samples, okay? I put them here because for future reference, for your midterm test, when you want to look for places, or look for where you can find code samples, here's a code sample. So please, no ChatGPT. You don't need it. I'm giving it to you right here. This is what you need, right? For midterm tests and that kind of stuff. And I'll be trying to give you code samples for authentication, for everything else. So you have one place to go. You can also look on GitHub because I share my GitHub repository with you too. So both of them are good places to look because you have information about what it might look like. You may have to make some different changes for you when it comes to your midterm test. For your assignment 1 and assignment 2, I mean, really, realistically, I'm giving you the code. You just have to make it all work properly, okay? So this is, we talked about this last time. We'd made we kind of did the display movie list. I'm just going to zoom in here. We have our display movie list function, and I called it a controller. That's what I called it. I remember we're using the model view controller design pattern. That's what it is. It's almost like just a way of designing or structuring our code. That's what we did. And remember with this that we use the movie model. That's the movie model itself. And we use the find method of the movie model. Remember when we do any kind of find returns data. And we passed in last week an empty object. And when I pass in an empty object, think about this as a filter. All right, this is the filter. So I'm not passing in anything, that I want to find. I'm passing in, kind of nothing. And what that means to MongoDB is like, give me everything. If I'm not filtering you, give me everything from the things that I'm looking for. And then you're getting back, I'm responding. That's what the res is. Res is the response. Response is sending out status code of 200. 200 means okay. That's what it means, this part. And then I'm delivering JSON data, right? And it's going to say success is true, message is movie list retrieved and displayed, and the data part is going to have data. So it's going to be parsed a little bit. Now, right now, this seems pretty easy, but when we consume this with the front end, like like I said before, if we're going to use something like Android or iOS, this is going to be tricky because you're getting not just data. This is the data part, right? You're getting this data part. That's awesome, but you're also getting a couple of more pieces of thing, and it's inside of an object, right? Here's your object. So, how's this going to look? We're going to talk about that as we approach the second half of semester. We're going to start doing this kind of stuff and consuming this data in Android and iOS. And it's going to be a second thing to think about, not just the API. The API we're building now, and then we're going to get into how to do things with Android and iOS after. Okay, so, and there will be sorry, let me take that back also. There will be some in-class exercise where I say, okay, I've given you Android, now you do the iOS part. Or I'm giving you the iOS part, now you do the Android part. So these things, these little 4% that I'm giving you as an example, they're going to get harder and more complicated as we go because I want you guys to practice using the tools, right? So that's what's happening. Right now, super easy. We're still in week 4. You know, we're just asking you to follow along. You're learning about TypeScript. You're learning at your API, your Express, all that stuff. Some people don't know that stuff, so it's all new for you. Maybe it's a new language. You've done it in a different language before. So now we're going to step it up after this week. Okay, so that was the first thing we did. And instead of me going through all of them, what I've done is I've kind of documented display movie list by ID. I've also talked about a problem that we have here. We'll talk about that in a second. As well as how to add a movie, how to update a movie, and how to delete a movie, okay? That's all this part that I've talked about. Again, I'm not gonna go through and read these things. We're gonna refer back to this if we need to, but for the most part, they're here for you for your reference. That's what I've put together. So you have all the code you need right here, okay? The other thing is, we're gonna talk about deploying live to render, and I've talked about how to do it in some steps. There's 4 major steps to do it. If you haven't signed up for render.com, before we get there, don't wait for me to do it. Do it now. Sign up for render.com while we're talking. So this way, when we get to that part, you can check it out and ask me questions, right? If you're watching live, okay? If you're doing this after the fact, I mean, I'll step you through how to do everything. I won't step you through how to sign up because I've already signed up. So you need to sign up for render.com on your own. Okay, so that's what's happening now. So without further ado, what I want to just do is hook back to this. Just way back up here, and I want to complete the CRUD functionality with you with Visual Studio Code. So like always, I'm just going to bring up our in-class exercises. So here we go. We're starting in-class exercise 4 now, okay? And I'm going to my folder structure. So here is MDEV1004, and I've got my ICEs for this semester. And look, I only have ICE 2. What happened to ICE 3? How come it's not here, right? Did I do it on another computer last time? What happened? Do you guys remember?
Yes, it was in the Mac.
I did it on the Mac. Today I'm doing it on the PC again, right? I'm doing this on purpose, by the way. I'm doing it because I don't want you guys to be comfortable necessarily running one platform or another. It doesn't really matter. You should be platform agnostic. Could I run it on the Mac? Sure, I could run it on the Mac. No problem. I have the Mac Studio, right? I can teleport in there, but not today. Today we're going to do things on the PC. On the Mac, it should be identical, right? But there might be some small differences. That's for you to figure out, okay? So what do I do next? If I have this and I have my, my stuff, what should I do if I want to get all my files? So first of all, I'm going to CD into that folder. So CD means change directory. That's what it means. Again, one of the things we're talking about this semester also is some small Linux-like commands. This is DOS for Windows, right? But for the most part, that's what it is. DOS is disk operating system. Still, DOS is DOS, right? But it's the terminal. It's basically the command prompt is what they call it now. So I'm teleporting in there. I'm kind of changing directory into this folder. And then what do I need to do? If I kind of list it, you can see these are all the ICEs. What do I need to do here in the folder if I want to get the other ones? Again, this is just a review. You guys should have this in your back pocket. No problem. What do I do? Anybody? I want to get the other 2, or the other one. I in class exercise 3. I did it on Mac. This is a repo. What do I do?
Git pull origin.
Hey, there we go. You guys are awake. Git pull, right? Git pull. And if I do a git pull and if everything is good, I should get in class exercise 3. There we go. So here's in class exercise 3. But I have a problem, don't I? What's the problem that I'm going to have with in class exercise 3? Please tell me. Let me go in there. First of all, let's copy it. I'm going to do that first. So let's copy in class exercise 3, and I'll make an in class exercise 4. Here it is. But I'm going to have a problem, aren't I? What's the problem that I'm going to have, my friends? Help me out.
Environment file.
right? My .m file is going to be empty, and I need to figure that out. So I
Yeah.
have to go to the Mac temporarily and grab that data. What if though, if you lose it, what happens? You need to reset everything online. That's a problem. I have to go to MongoDB Atlas and then change the password because I don't have that password. Password only exists there, right? And you can't recover it anyway. It can't even recover it for you. It has to create a new one. So we're not going to do that. I'm just going to kind of get in-class exercise 4 working. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to the Mac temporarily and do that. All right, just to make it quick for you. For you, if you're working on a Mac, you don't have to do this. You're good. I don't expect you to bounce between Windows and Mac. I don't expect you to do that. Remember, for this course, you need a Mac, right? So here I'm just making it so I'm complicating my life a little bit to make it more interesting for you. All right, so I'm pulling up Visual Studio Code. I'll do that in a second. And Visual Studio Code likes to update a lot, and that's okay. I'm also going to pull up my in-class exercise 4. Right, here it is. In-class exercise 4. And in-class exercise 4 is identical to in-class exercise 3 right now, right? So what we want to do is make some changes. And we start with our package.json. Package.json should say in-class exercise 4. Version should be, for now, 004. Okay, because I'm just matching this up. It's still going to start node server.js. That's what's going to happen. We still have our dependencies and everything else we had from last day. All that remains the same. I'm not changing my tsconfig.json. That stays the same. Okay, this is all the same stuff. So really, package.json is the only thing we've changed so far. The other thing we should change is in the server.ts. If we ever do debugging with Morgan, which is one of the debug things, in-class exercise 4 should go here too, just to specify what we're at. Okay, save. So that is the two changes we have to make. However, if I did that here like this and I changed a TS file, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? Sudarshan?
We have to do the TSC watch.
TSC-w.
Which means I have to transpile. That's what I have to do.
Yeah.
And also, why am I getting these errors? Why am I getting all these big red errors here? Why? How come?
Maybe due to the dependency.
Yeah, it's definitely a dependency problem, but why am I getting the errors? I mean, I just pulled this thing from my repo and it's working just fine before, but why am I getting it now? There's a reason. Because I don't have any node modules, right? So I have to do that first, right? So I have to do kind of like a yarn. This is the reason why I'm talking about this is because people go through this and they're like, I don't know, Professor, why, but my project is not working. Well, your project is not working because two problems, right? One, you didn't do a yarn install, right? You didn't do that, right? Or some people are using npm and npm install. You didn't do that part. Okay, that's number one. And the second thing is you've made some changes to your server.ts. Awesome, but you didn't transpile. So let's wait for this.
Yeah.
All right, so now if I go back to my server.ts, my expectation is that there wouldn't be any errors anymore, right? These errors should go away, right? Because it says could not find the declaration file. And now we're still getting some errors, and but the declaration file is there, right? Isn't it? Because if I refresh, sometimes we have to refresh the project. See how I have to manually refresh that? We have our node modules here now, and this is where it comes from, right? And well, we need to transpile. So let's just do that next. So now you could do it two ways. You can do it here on the command line. You can say tsc -w. You could transpile for sure. It's possible. And tsc -w is TypeScript, and it's going to transpile to JavaScript. So just wait for it, please. Your machine may be way faster than mine because I'm doing a lot of things. It's found 0 errors. So it finally transpiled, and then you can see here that on server.js, we should have, the thing to look for is ICE4. See, when it did this, it transpiled to this. And so even though it gives me errors sometimes like this, I'm not really worried. I'm not really worried because it says debug, module debug is not found, but we know that it's here, right here. The debug module is actually here. And sometimes TypeScript does these funny things because we didn't have the node modules folder. Again, closing it down sometimes, the files, I find that this is a solution, and opening up again, sometimes, but not always, sometimes this fixes our issues with Visual Studio Code and TypeScript. Don't worry about it. Next, the other thing that we have to think about here with this kind of stuff is the process stuff that I talked about. So again, I'm going to go to my Mac for this. So I'm just going to remote in. And when I remote into my Mac, here it is, right? What I want to do is log in. And when I log in, I want to bring up my Visual Studio Code from last day. This is what you would have if you were using the Mac. Here it is. And what I'm really looking for here on Windows is this .env file with this piece of code right here. This is the code that I need to connect to Mongo, right? I need this part. So back to Windows, right? I need to create, it doesn't create the .env file for you. There's no .env file here, right? So what we need to do is do that. I'm going to make a brand new file, not here. Make a brand new file here. Notice that if I clicked here, it'll create it inside of node modules. If I create it here, if I click here, it'll create it inside of server. We don't want there. We want it here. If I click here, this part, then it'll create it there. And I want to call this .env. There's my .env file. And what I want to do is I want to kind of go back to this somehow or another. I want to copy this part, this line here. I want to copy it. And then if I go back to Windows, then I want to paste, and I'm going to have that Mongo URI. Okay, so that's what I did. I need this thing because it's unique, and it's not going to go on GitHub. It's a problem that we have when we transfer computers. We need to have access to this code, or you need to reset your password. The password's here. This has to be reset to something else. You're never going to get this back from MongoDB Atlas. Okay, it won't read it for you unless you recorded it somewhere else. All right, so this is important. We've done Mongo URI now. Now we test. Without anything else, before we do anything else here, we have to run it and test it. So I'm going to be here, and let's pull up another terminal. And then we're just going to use nodemon, right, to test this out. So we're going to say just nodemon. And then everything should work if we did everything correctly. If we didn't, we're going to try and figure this out. Sometimes you get this. Sometimes you get like a new version of nodemon available, and the current version is 3.1 and blah, blah, blah. But I don't care about that. What I care about is something else. What I care about is how come it's not connecting to MongoDB Atlas? Notice that here. I'm good. Oh, there it is. See how there's a delay? I don't like that delay. But guess why? Why is that delay there? Why is it slow to connect to MongoDB Atlas? It's not my machine, by the way. Anybody have a reason they can think of?
Connecting for the first time in that PC.
No. That's not the reason. It's because I'm not paying for a service that's a crazy service. It spins down, and you're going to see the same thing happen with render. Render is going to spin down, and that means that you're not going to get any data for a few seconds. It's going to and for render, it's going to be a few minutes. All right, so it's going to be really slow, but that's okay because we're getting it for free. We're not paying anything. Okay. So it says this, nodemon, there's an update available, and it kind of talks about how to do this. If I wanted to update, right, if I wanted to update nodemon for my machine, I could just literally just do an npm install nodemon -g for global. And then what this will do is overwrite all the nodemon stuff. And if I test for nodemon -- version here, then you'll see that nodemon has a version 3.12. So we're good. So now if I run nodemon again, then we should see pretty much us connecting for the most part immediately. There we go, 3.12. Nodemon, just a little note, watches these extensions, JavaScript, MJS, CJS, and JSON, right? Those are the things that it looks for changes. You can change this by creating a nodemon JSON file, all right? A nodemon JSON file, you can create it here, and what nodemon will do is it'll look inside of your root for nodemon.json, and you can tell it what to watch. The documentation is online for nodemon. So when you're doing your testing, there are modifications you can use. Okay, we're connected to MongoDB Atlas. Let's make sure that we're getting the same information. I'm just going to kind of get out of the Mac right now. I don't need this anymore, so I'm just going to kind of exit from VS Code on the Mac and close down my remote. But what I want to do is I want to do a local host here, 3000, and you can say, hey, there's my error, which is what you should have too. Most people did this in the in-class exercise 3. You guys did this okay. And then if I put in API by itself, I'm going to get this, right? Because that's what I've got one movie that I've got online, and this is the one. Okay? So this is good, and we want to add to this functionality now. But before we do that, let's put this up on GitHub. So again, I'm going to put up another terminal, and I'm going to do something like git add dot when the terminal comes up, git add dot, and then git commit -m, and we'll say added project files for in-class exercise 4. Okay, and then I'm going to git push. There we go. There's my git push, and we're good to go. Okay. Awesome. There we go. There we go. All right. So that's this all good. What does this look like? Well, if I go to that link, so if I click on the link on GitHub, then it'll take me to here, and you can see here now that I have in-class exercise 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see all these things up on GitHub. This is good, right? Now I'm going to skip this part, and normally what I would do is add functionality locally, like it says here in PowerPoint. Right, so in the PowerPoint it says let's look at functionality locally, right? All these functions and add them in, and then test on render. Instead, let's just test on render first, and this will take care of assignment 1 and the requirements for in-class exercise 4. Okay, at the same time. So render. All right, let's go back to render. So hopefully you signed up for render. I'm hoping you just did that. I'm going to go to render.com here, render.com. Okay, so if you haven't had a chance to do that, I want you to sign up now, okay, if you haven't done it already. So render is, I would say, a small site. It uses, it's a service that is based on other bigger services. So for example, it might use Amazon on the back end, as an example, but on the front end, it provides a very slick little way of getting things, kind of ready to go. And so when you sign in, you'll have a sign up page that's here, okay? Me, I have dashboard. When you finally sign up, you'll have a dashboard, okay? So my dashboard, when you click on dashboard, it'll take me to all the sites that I'm working on today, right? And it might ask you to sign in with GitHub. I use GitHub. Some people use Google, right? It doesn't really matter. I'm going to click on GitHub for myself to sign in because that's how I've kind of set my project up with Render. You're also going to have a couple of things here that you're going to see. So services that you've created, right? And the type of service that is it deployed or not? Is it working? Status. The type, if it's a web service. The runtime, if it's Node. You can see I've done a few Node sites. And then the region, which is normally Ohio. And then how long, when's the last time you deployed something here as an example. Okay, so those are the things that you're going to see. I want to, with you, create a brand new service. Okay, so when I click here, again, if you follow the PowerPoint, by the way, and that's like after this part, that's what I'm doing right now. So kind of after page 14, I'm kind of going here and doing all this part right here. Okay, so first we're going to, you have to have an account. So that's what we're doing next. Okay, so you've got an account, and now what I want to do is I want to create a new service. If I click new, it gives you a few options. Okay, so one of them is a static site. So if I wanted to make a static site, that would be something like if I wanted to make just a, I don't know, create, a React site or an Angular site. I can just use a static site for that, okay? Web service is interesting. Web service allows me to, put together a node service or something else like that. There's also a private service that you can use. So private services only to you, to your own services, and you can speak, they can speak any protocol. There's also a background worker, a cron job, and Postgres server, which is kind of neat that they actually offer a Postgres server plus Redis and a bunch of other things in Blueprint. So those are the ones they offer. I think it's really simple to get started. Just click web service. This is the next one. So once you've clicked the web service, there's two ways to deploy. One way is an image from a registry, okay? So that's like public image from any registry or private image from a Docker hub, GitHub, or GitLab. We're not using Docker so far in this course, so we're going to use this one, the first one, which is build and deploy from Git repository or GitLab, one of the two. If you click this, when you go next, what you're going to need to do is you need to give GitHub permission to show all the Git repositories here. So notice what I've got here is if I was going to create a new web service, I would need a GitHub link here that I want to hook up to. Right now, my friends, we really don't have this. And so we have to stop what I'm doing. I'm showing you the process, but I want to also talk about a problem you may encounter. And let's talk about this first. So here it's kind of looking through my GitHub repositories. That's what it's doing. And then it's trying to find the most recent repositories that I'm working on. So here it found this one. Now, question, can I use this one for deployment? Well, the answer, I'll give you the answer. The answer is no. I can't use this because my ISIS folder has every in-class exercise here. So it doesn't really know which folder to go to. And I don't want it to bounce around from one folder to the other. So it's almost like I need, and this is what I need to do, I need to create a separate repository for things that are going to go online. This is what you're going to need to do for your in-class exercise 4. Okay, you can't really point to it so easily. It can be done, but I recommend making a brand new repo. So there's a problem with this approach. Okay, let me talk about the problems. Okay, so we know. First of all, you can see that it does see private repositories. It allows you to see those things as well. Okay, and some of my students appear here as well. Like you'll see anything that's been shared with you, other repositories, they're all here. Take a look. There's like tons and tons of them. Right, so it actually gives you some of this stuff too, which is kind of neat. Okay, there's also a button down here if you want to configure your account. You can do that. You can also connect GitLab and Bitbucket right here. So if you want to use those, I don't recommend them. But if I configure my account here, then it'll say, hey, do I want to install render, as an example on certain things, and then I can select a repository to connect to. I don't need to do that right now because I've already done this kind of stuff, so I'm just going to go back. So I need a repository, and unfortunately I don't have one. So I'm just going to go back to my dashboard for now. There's my dashboard. Okay. So first things first, let's make a repository that I'm going to use online for this project. So again, in-class exercise 4, we're going to be working with in-class exercise 4. But at the end, what I want to do is I want to kind of copy this into its own repository, almost like this is my staging area. And then I'm going to have a repository where I have my deployment, my development project. Okay, so please be advised how this works. These two little repos, and so you work locally, and then when you're done working locally, right, you copy stuff over into your live site repository, and then you deploy. So problems with this approach. Okay, now we're doing it because we're using an in-class exercise group of folders. In real life, you might want to do things slightly differently. Maybe you're going to have two sites that you're going to manage. One is your staging site, and the other one is your live site, right? Your staging site is something where you work, and what you do is you can switch between your live site and your staging site. You can do those things. But for now, what we want to do is we want to make it so that our in-class exercise 4 is something that we kind of make into another repository. So we're going to do that locally. So back to my local folders. What I want to do is MDEV1004. I want to make a brand new repo, right? So I'm going to call this a new name. You can do this on Mac and Windows. New. I'm going to make a new folder, and the new folder that I'm going to create. And by the way, this is the process for assignment 1. You don't have to do this because for assignment 1 there is only one repo. You don't have like many of them, and that's why I want assignment 1 and assignment 2 to be different, because assignment 2 is going to overwrite everything that we had in assignment 1. Once I've marked assignment 1, I'm going to say, okay, you can get rid of the stuff inside of your live site and then make it your own. So for me, for in-class exercise, I would do something like this: MDEV1004, and then we're going to call this M2024, but it's going to be called API. So the API repository is going to have the latest version of my API, only that code in there. All right. So then what I would do is I would go into my in-class exercises, grab the stuff from ICE4, all this stuff, including my .m file, please. You have to have this, okay? Because otherwise it won't work properly for you, right? Grab all this, right? copy it. That's all this. Go over to your here and then copy paste it into your API folder, right? Now, because I'm copy pasting node modules, it's going to take some time because I have hundreds, literally hundreds of node module files that are going to go across. Even if I have an SSD, which of course I do, it's going to take some time. So you need to do this as well. So what happens later on today when I want to update my API? I have to do this process again. That's what's going to happen. I have to overwrite this whole thing again, and then that kind of thing. But that's me, because and for your in-class exercise 4, you're going to have to do this too, because you need to give me the link, or at least show me what that link is for your API. I'll update the in-class exercise 4, so it requires that, so you know what I'm talking about. Okay, so now that I have this, right, then I want to connect this to GitHub, right? Now, a couple ways to do this. You could bring this into Visual Studio Code. I could do that. It's already ready to go. So I could just drag and drop that folder, this whole folder here. I could drag and drop it into here. And now this is my new thing, right, which is my API. And notice that it says API here, not ICE4, okay? Then package.json has to be changed, because this can't say ICE4 anymore. It should be the name in lowercase only of your API. So MDEV1004-M2024-API. You would have another name. Your name is going to be based on whatever, however your conventions are. Then you change this to 05, right? Because it's the fifth version of our code that we're working on. You can also keep it at 04. It doesn't really matter. This versioning is up to you, how you want to version your stuff. Okay? And so we have to change. That's one change we have to make. And the other change we're going to make is here on the server, right? Where if we ever do this stuff, this would normally be something we change. I'm not going to change that here, because this is just something I'm going to deploy. For the most part, my package.json is the only thing I'm going to change this time. Okay? So there's my .m file. I have everything here, and I'm ready to deploy on render, right? But I need to put this up on GitHub. So here, I'm going to do the same thing I normally do when we deploy, when we create a new repository. I'm going to say git init, right? We're initializing a new repository, git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll call this initial commit, right? And then I want to push this to GitHub repository. The code for this, right, is here, right? When I make a new repository, that's where it's going to be. So let's make a new repository now. I'm going to go here and I'm going to create a new repository. There it is. And for new repository, I have to make sure that it's in Georgian College, not some other college, right? That's what I want. Here it is. And for you guys, it's going to be your account. All right, and then for me, I'm going to have to name it something like MDEV1004 and the summer 2024 and API. Same name that I want to put up on render. Okay, I'm going to keep mine. It doesn't matter if it's private or public. I'm going to make mine public so you guys can see what mine looks like compared to yours, right? But you could keep yours private, please. Okay, for the in-class exercise 4, I don't need this. You don't have to share your API link with me, your GitHub link for your API. I just need your final link, how that looks online, right, which we'll talk about. Okay, so GitHub, that's in-class exercise 4. Don't share this part. This is just a copy of in-class exercise 4, really, so you don't have to give it to me, right? And I don't need a README file. I don't need any of this other stuff. I'm going to click Create Repository. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the new instructions here, copy this one, and go back to VS Code, and then right-click and paste, and you're going to see that right-click and enter, and it's going to push things to our new repository. Okay, so this is the first step. And then once it's pushed to the new repository, then what I can do is I can go to render. Let's go back to render.com. First I'll refresh so I can see the new repositories here. And you can see that yes, indeed it is. And you don't see anything else, just the repo in the root. Okay, this is the the repository that I need to put up for my web service. Okay, so here it is. And now I want to put this up on render. So back to render. Here's the dashboard. Let's refresh the dashboard, right? So that way it's not looking at anything else right now. And then I'm going to click that new service again. So new web service, right? I'm going to build from a GitHub repository, click next. You're going to have to give permissions if you haven't done this already. Then what we're looking for here is the name of my repo I just made, right, which is API. Okay, let's see, it's going to take some time to do this, so let's give it a second. And here we are. All right, so here we are. You can see that there's MDEV1004 API. I'm going to click connect. All right, and when I click connect now, it's going to give me a set of new options. One of them is going to say, well, what's the unique name for your web service? Mine is this one. Okay, and then I'm going to scroll down, and it's asking me for the branch. Well, that's main. It filled it in for me, right? Node, I'm using yarn as my build command. Yarn start is what it's going to use. And there's some options here, right? Now, for me, I want you to use free. But free, it says here, free instances spin down. Look at this, spin down after periods of inactivity. And that means when I test your stuff, it's going to be like blank for a second. And then I have to wait until it spins up. And then it's going to be live again. And this is what we get what we pay for, right? So I don't expect you guys to pay any money. All right, so please don't pay any money for this. If you want, you can, but I don't recommend it. It's like, you know, even for $7 a month where you get 0.5 of a CPU, I mean, why? Don't do it. If you're making this a real thing, maybe you might want to think about pushing this to something like Microsoft Azure or AWS or Google Cloud Platform or someplace else, right? But for now, for us, for learning, this is just fine, okay? So we're going to pick 0, free, okay? That's important. And down here is the next piece we need, which is our environment variables. This is a great place to put that environment variable from your project. So here, back to .env, Mongo URI is the environment variable name, this part. Okay, so I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go back to render and type and kind of paste it in. That's the first thing. So Mongo URI, and the value is important. The value is important. Okay, so let's go back and grab that too. So back to this. I'm going to grab the value, which is just this part after the equal sign, okay? All this. This is the username and password information, right? And then I'm going to put that right in here. So why am I doing this? Well, what it actually does is it hides this environment variable so that it's not shown anywhere. If I'm doing something with, for example, I don't know, email relay service, like SendGrid, or I'm going to deploy some other service later on this semester, where we have to share, hide our API keys. We do that through the environment variable, so that on the server, it's only available there. It's not available locally, and it should match the .env file. Notice it says add from .env. You can do that too. It actually will allow you to do this. For now, though, this is good enough. We've done this, and now I'm going to click Create Web Service. That's what I'm going to do. Okay, so Create Web Service. I'm going to click that, and then let's see what happens. So next part is this. It says it's going to start deploying. Here's where it says building, right? And sometimes you get into issues where the build doesn't happen, right? So when it's building, you can actually watch it build in the dashboard. So if I go to dashboard, then you can notice it says deploying. And when in your deploy, you can actually watch it deploy. Here's my first deploy. And if it does it for the first time, it may show your log here if it's deploying, okay? It may show your logs here. So wait for it to be done. Like if I look at logs, like right now there is no log for this thing, right? There's no logs at all. So no logs to show, right? So here it is. It's finally cloning and doing something. And you can see that it's slowly building. That's what it's doing. So it's resolving packages. It's installing yarn 1.222, right? It's building a fresh package. It's uploading my build. So it's going through. You can actually watch this happen in real time, where it's uploading my build from GitHub to render. So it says build successful. It built. Now, after it built, doesn't mean you're live yet. You have to wait, right? It's still up here. You can see that it's still building. It's still building. You got to give it a chance. And then now it's deploying. Okay, this is the next step. So the deploy step is where it's going to check things like your node version, your npm version, all that stuff, and try and make sure that things are working here. And so this is what's happening. Let's take a look. So give it a sec. It takes time. Okay. Remember, this is best effort, my friends. Right? You're not paying for this. So don't expect snappy service, like really fast service. It may not happen so fast. Give it some time. Okay, it's going to be okay. Now, why am I showing you all this stuff? Because, my friends, on midterm tests, you're going to have to build a brand new thing on render, right? And it's going to take time. And what people do is they wait for the last minute for things to build. And even for your assignment 1, you're going to wait. If you do this last minute on Sunday, look, it's taking time. And if everyone's doing it, not just you, but all your classmates are doing it on Sunday, it's going to take even more time. Don't wait till the end. Please get this done as soon as possible, right? You don't have to wait. You can do, look, today's Thursday. You can do it tomorrow, Friday, Saturday, right? But don't wait till Sunday, because bad things happen to good people. What if render goes down? Like, on some part of the day on Sunday? It can happen, right? And that would be very bad. You can't deploy. And then you're going to say, Tom, I couldn't deploy on Sunday. You waited 2 weeks to get this done, right? So, or even a few days, let's say, because I'm just talking about it today, right? So don't wait. Don't wait. Just get started off. It's going to take time. And give it your time that it needs. Like, notice if I go back to my dashboard, again, you can see that it's deploying. It has these little funny things here. And so if I click on the deploying thing for dashboard, as an example, it's going to show me, my first deploy and where it started and where I am with it. It's still doing its thing. Give it time. All right. So while this is doing that, and it's going to take time, it's nothing to do with my computer, by the way. This is all cloud service that's working. Yours might be done if you're doing this with me. Yours might be completely done. And if it is, wonderful. That's great if yours is done. Mine, it's best effort. So the server is going to do it whenever it feels like it. That's what best effort means. So let's talk about the process so far. Review, right? First part is make a copy of your service and you put it inside of a whole folder. Make a new repository, put it up on GitHub. That's what we did. And after you make a new repository and put it up on GitHub, connect it to render, which is what we did. Now wait for the deployment to happen. Sometimes it fails, right? It built, but it failed. There's going to be reasons why it fails, and it's going to tell you why it failed, right? So just leave it alone, all right? Has anyone done, by the way? Did anyone actually deploy online? You might have actually deployed faster than me.
I already have done, Professor.
You're
It's
done
okay.
already. See, look at that. You're better than me,
Yeah.
right? So great thing is what render does is it gives you a link. This is the link right here that you'll be going to. That link right here is the link that render gives you for your service, MDEV, in my case, 1004 M2024 API plus some number, which is going to be unique to my account, right? But this is actually unique to all of render. So that's what it's going to be, .onrender.com. Maybe you did this first, Q9. Instead of Q9B1 or BI, you might have a unique one that is not this. It might be like whatever. Or it could be what I said, which is MDEV1004 M2024 API. It could be that, right? But that is your API for your in-class exercises. We'll be modifying this every week, right? So slowly, we'll be modifying it, making it better and better and better. And that's what we're going to be doing. Okay, so here, so it did some stuff, and now it's still deploying, and stuff. Sometimes what people say is like, if I cancel my deploy and I try it again, maybe I'm going to be faster. Don't think about that. All right, that's not the answer to this. All right, so we're going to wait. In the meantime, instead of me just watching this work, which doesn't make any sense, I've gone for about an hour of time. I'm going to stop now and take a short break. Let's come back in 10 minutes. It's 12:05, and we'll come back at 12:15, and then let's see if they're done by now. And if not, we'll do it again. Okay, let's see what happens. So let's take a break.